Welcome. From the archives, let's pull a story. One not of grand ambition, but of quiet, creeping surrender. We're about to take a journey into the gray, suffocating fog of a place called the City of Ash Hues. Now, this isn't the classic tale of selling your soul for unlimited power or forbidden knowledge. Now, this is something far more subtle, and, you could argue, a whole lot more insidious. And this single, cynical question, it gets right to the heart of what we're talking about, the modern Faustian bargain. It's a deal where the ultimate prize isn't to become great, but to just not be at risk. It's a contract designed not to elevate the soul, but to sedate it, to lull it into a comfortable, permanent twilight. So our story begins, as any good tragedy should, by setting the stage. Let's enter the City of Ash Hues. This is a landscape of the modern mind, where the very air feels thick with the leaden weight of absolute, unshakable safety.
And here is the absolute key, the inversion. See, the classical Faust, he reached for the stars, right? He was willing to risk total damnation for a taste of glory. But the modern subject, our so-called stargazer, they just want to be insulated from the fall. They trade the brilliant, chaotic, messy potential of becoming something more for the predictable, sterile comfort of just being.
So the contract itself, it's really an insurance policy against feeling small. It's a guarantee against ever really failing. But the premium you pay for this policy? Well, it's everything. The soul is surrendered for guaranteed stagnation, a protected little bubble where nothing is risked, and so nothing of any real value can ever be gained. Now we move into Act 2. The bargain's been struck, and we get to meet the architects of this comfortable little prison. But here's the twist. These aren't demons with pitchforks. They're internal forces, primal, ancient things tempting the void that's already deep inside the self.
And here you can see the two faces of the tempter. On one side, you've got the raw, primitive I'd. We'll call it the sentinel of resentment. It runs on pure impulse. It offers you cheap distractions, instant gratification. It's the brute. But its partner is the corrupted architect, the sophisticated ego. It doesn't use brute force. It uses logic, reason, and clever legalistic traps to convince you that giving up is actually the smartest choice you could possibly make.
And when these two work together, wow, they create the perfect trap. The egg keeps you busy with the shallow marketplace of desires, while the ego comes along and rationalizes your surrender with these incredibly sophisticated arguments. They work in perfect harmony to achieve one single goal: static control, making absolutely sure your soul never, ever takes flight. So the contract is sealed. Now, let's take a closer look at the very ink it was written in. The language, the logic, the whole system used to bind the soul to the state of non-becoming. At the heart of it all is something called the vile economy. Just imagine a kind of mental marketplace where the tempter convinces you that seeking truth is just too expensive, too dangerous, a total fool's errand. And in this crazy system, your soul, your potential, your spirit of becoming is presented as the cheapest, most disposable thing you have. So hey, why not trade it for a little peace and quiet? And so the deal is signed. Not in blood, like in the old stories, but in the ink of negation. It's a promise not of what you will gain, but of everything you agree you won't become. It's a vow to remain static and safe and ultimately totally hollow. To enforce this contract, the corrupted architect starts reframing the very structures of our lives. You know, institutions that are supposed to be for growth, things like marriage, religion, tradition, they get twisted into what we call gilded cages. They're sold to you not as platforms for striving, but as protective armor to hide inside, shielding a fragile, stagnant ego from the terror of the great unknown. The end result of this whole process is the total triumph of the spirit of gravity. It's like this leaden weight that just pulls you down, anchoring you to what's predictable, what's safe, what's mundane. Your limitless potential, that spirit of becoming, is traded away for an existence that's totally secure, but also utterly, completely empty. But you know what? No cage holds forever. In our final act, the architecture of stagnation begins to crack, all the illusions start to collapse, and the seeker is forced into a final, terrifying showdown with the truth of their bargain. So what does happen? When that protective armor fails and the walls of the cage just dissolve, what's left? Well, the seeker was left exposed, vulnerable, and standing face to face with the very void they paid such a high price to avoid. Now, this collapse isn't just chaos. It's a cold, deliberate process, a clinical unmaking procedure. And it's overseen by a figure known as the Red Spectre, the High Judge of the Void. This judge uses something called the weaponized uncanny. It turns every comfort you had into a source of dread, every familiar thing into a threat. One by one, the ego's salve of illusion is stripped away, until there is nothing left but a raw, inescapable choice. And here is the ultimate devastating irony. The soul that shows safety above everything else finds itself rejected even by damnation. Not because it's pure or holy, but because it's hollow. It lacks the passion, the fire in the veins that's needed for any kind of grand fate. It is simply too small to burn. This devastating rejection leads to the final crucible. Stripped bare of all the comforting lies, the seeker stands at a cliff's edge with only two ways forward: utter dissolution or a radical, painful rebirth. The stakes couldn't be clearer. The logic of zero. That's the path of surrender. It's the final pull of the id towards the grand silence, a complete dissolving into nothingness. But the logic of one, that's the path of sovereignty. It's a painful Nietzschean metamorphosis, a transformation where you literally have to forge a new, powerful self from the ashes of your old one. And this reveals the incredible paradox at the heart of this entire ordeal. The intense, soul-crushing pressure of negation, the very thing designed to trap you, it actually becomes the essential catalyst for a genuine awakening. The poison becomes the cure. The judge becomes the physician. Surviving this trial leaves the seeker in a state of total freedom, but also total responsibility. There are no more cages, no more illusions. All that's left is the self, walking a fragile rope over the abyss, tasked with creating its own meaning right in the face of nothingness. And so we leave our seeker, and you, with this final question. Having faced the complete annihilation of the self you thought you were, could you find the lightness to dance on the grave of that past? Could you look into the absolute void, not with terror, but with the smile of a creator, ready to begin all over again?